President Byrne.
Here.
Trustee Marquardt.
Here.
Trustee Cook.
Here.
Trustee Schultz.
Here.
Trustee Oppenheim. Trustee Takaoka. Trustee Brown.
Here.
We have a quorum present. Will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, man, I'm changing the words. Okay.
I don't think so.
Any citizens that wish to address the board tonight on anything other than what's going to be on this special committee of the whole? So if anybody's got something that's, near and dear to them. Okay. All right. For the special committee of the whole meeting, the first, I have to adjourn the board, right?
No, this is just, no, just committee of the whole.
Okay, okay, all right, fine. All right, well, the first item is Centennial Real Estate presentation of proposed phase development of Hawthorne Mall. And I see the petitioners are here. So who's starting off with this one?
I am, Your Honor. So Centennial is here this evening to present their concept plans to redevelop Hawthorne Mall. Centennial, as you're aware, has recently acquired both the Sears and Carson Prairie Scott anchor properties and plans to develop the mall in a series of phases. The first phase of which is before you this evening, and that is for 3 freestanding sit-down restaurant buildings between Ring Road and Milwaukee Avenue adjacent to the former Sears anchor. Centennial is also proposing to relocate utilities and the Ring Road itself to accommodate these new outlets. While no specific restaurant users have been identified, we have stressed to the petitioners that high-quality architecture, forest-side nature will be required. With this being the first of multiple phases with this development, we obviously want to start the first phase on the right note, and that requires high-quality architecture that's developed appropriately while also being conscientious to the surrounding properties. To that end, we've had conversations with them about ensuring that appropriate pedestrian access is utilized along Milwaukee Avenue, as well as working with them to ensure cross-access between the Melody Farm site and the mall site. I think Centennial has done a very good job understanding what we, the village, want to see in terms of a cohesive development that joins not just the Centennial-owned properties, but also those owned by Macy's and Penny's, and I know they'll touch on that as well. With that, I think it's appropriate to bring up them to present their plans.
Good evening. My name is Oliver Robinson. I'm with Centennial Real Estate, and we are fortunate enough to own the Hawthorne Mall, and we really appreciate your time tonight. I want to mainly answer your questions. I've met with a number of you in the past, and I want to make it very clear that our interests are aligned here. The mall is a linchpin in the Vernon Hills community as far as retail and commerce. We are excited about the ownership of the mall, but as you're aware, there's been significant challenges within the retail markets, especially the malls across the country, and unfortunately, Vernon Hills is not immune to that. As Mr. Carey noted, we've been fortunate to be able to make some kind of defensive and offensive moves in terms of getting control of both the Sears box as well as the Carson Perry Scott real estate. These were actions we took very quickly, very aggressively to ensure that we controlled our own fate here. And right now we're in the process of working on the redevelopment of the mall. We're working on how to adjust to the changes that we're seeing within the retail markets, the adjusting consumer demands, the changes in the consumer behaviors. We're working on bringing more experiential aspects to the mall and basically in today's day and age, you have to give people a reason to come. It's not as easy as it used to be. It used to be just a center of commerce. People showed up, and that's kind of how the malls worked in the community. Now there's too many options, whether it be the online options for kind of the commodities that one wants to buy, or other retail experiences. So our challenge right now is bringing people to the mall, and this is the first phase. We've got a number of different options we're looking at, some of which are included within this package. But the first phase that we feel like we can step forward with is putting some high-quality restaurant users on Milwaukee. We feel like it's complementary to what's happened at Melody Farms, and we know the demand is there in the market. We'll obviously have to make some changes, some infrastructure improvements to make this happen, but we're willing to put forward that capital to make this possible in a community like this, where sales tax is obviously a very important aspect. We feel like that we're very aligned with Vernon Hills in this first step of the redevelopment. So I'm just going to click through this fairly quickly. Most of you have seen a lot of these details. What we show here is a realignment of the ring road. There's going to be some significant grade changes that we have to deal with, some infrastructure relocation that we have to deal with. But these kind of users demand a certain amount of parking in direct proximity to their buildings to ensure that their customers have the fewest barriers possible to park and to get into their restaurants. So we feel like moving this ring road gives us the best chance to bring in the best operators. Fairly simple, and please, if you have questions while we speak here, just jump in, and I'm happy to do my best. What we've shown here, and this is purely for context at the village's request, staff's request, is we put in some other options as far as the use of the Sears box that we're considering. We're looking at trying to integrate retail with residential in this plan. Obviously, this utilizes a good bit of the land that goes along with the Sears parcel. This shows roughly 400 to 450 multifamily units in this first two phases, with another, call it roughly 150 to 170 up on this north piece. This would be much further in the future, we believe. The last piece here that we were asked to put in is some of the plans that Macy's has for their parcel. They are looking at kind of a similar execution in terms of putting in some retail space along Town Line. Oops. And just for kind of overall context, we included this in the package so that the board could see kind of what the full plans are at this point for the mall. With that, we've had a number of architectural renderings done, but this kind of goes beyond the scope of what we're asking for today. So in a nutshell, our request to you is that you approve moving ahead our plan to technical review so that we can work with staff and move this along. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or we've got a number of folks from Centennial, including some corporate and some mall staff, on-site mall staff, and we can make an attempt to answer any question you have, or we'll make something up, one or the other.
How many parking spaces does you currently have with regard to the Sears properties, strictly the Sears properties?
How many spaces are within the Sears property? I don't have that survey. Do you have any idea offhand? I'm going to have to get back to you. I mean, we have that information. I just don't have it committed to memory. It's a lot. It's a whole lot.
And what's the footprint of the Sears building right now?
The footprint is, I want to say, 135,000 square feet, roughly. But then there's two levels for most of it. So I think in total, I want to say it's around 220,000 feet, I believe. Yes, ma'am.
In phase 2 residential, could that be geared more towards senior citizens? I mean, we need more of that, and the problem with more multifamily, or it's the overcrowding that we have in the schools.
Sure. And yes, it certainly could be. I don't think we want to restrict it. You know, we have to respond to the market, but we like the use as far as, you know, senior housing goes. And it's going to be a function of, you know, if that's the way that we need to go with some of it, we'd love to. We love the use because that's a great mall shopper. It's a built-in customer. That said, most of the multifamily you see being built today in this kind of fashion is not going to be super kid-friendly, you know, not by intent, but by the fact that you tend to have smaller units. You tend to have, you know, you don't see a lot of 3 bedrooms, which is traditionally what you need with a family. It's just not as well, quite frankly, it doesn't make as much sense economically to a developer. So we understand that that's a big sensitivity to the village. And, you know, we certainly want to work with the village to make sure that we take that into account. That said,
would be my main
if you look at what's happening with mall properties across the country, we're including many more uses that traditionally were never in malls. One of the big one being multifamily. It gives a feel to the mall that's very different. It brings a built-in clientele, and quite frankly, it brings an economic incentive that allows for other things to be done to step that mall up. So it makes sense economically.
Trustee Cook.
Dave has light on earlier.
Okay.
Defer to him.
I did.
Trustee Apponak.
So why is it that we're putting 3 more restaurants in as part of phase 1? Does that really need to be phase 1? What's the advantage to you or to us to do that? We've got a lot of restaurants, you know, that just opened up across the street. I have a little bit of a concern that we're going to have suddenly too many right next to each other, and I'd hate to see. I like competition, but I hate to see too much that you're cannibalizing the Melody Farm, which we have a big TIF dollar that's out there for that. So, is it possible to incorporate that as part of just a master plan and not have just phase 1 as restaurants? And I guess the second part of the question is, what guarantee do we have that you're not just going to build the restaurants and then not make changes to the rest of the mall?
So I guess a few questions. You know, in our experience, retail breeds retail. Success breeds success. We understand the cannibalization argument. I mean, in fact, obviously we've been cannibalized by Melody Farms, which,
Right.
you know, we're not very big fans of. But it is what it is at this point, and we're doing our best to respond and to, you know, make the changes necessary to ensure that the mall succeeds. So, you know, from a restaurant perspective, people are spending more money in restaurants now than they ever have. It's part of the experiential culture. It's part of where people are allocating their disposable dollars today. You know, our goal isn't to necessarily put in direct competition. Our goal is to put in good restaurants to bring people to the mall property.
Do we need to have 3 of them there, or would it be a better advantage to incorporate some of these more interior so that they're actually forced to use the mall instead of just parking on the outside and then leaving? What's going to draw them into the mall itself?
Well, you're right. A good number of them won't be drawn into the mall, right? A good number of people will go out to eat with their families, by themselves, with friends, and they'll leave, but some will come into the mall. It's a matter of getting people to the mall property that's important. There's a number of, you know, you call it the restaurant world is very bifurcated, right? There's different types of restaurants. There's traditional food court restaurants. There's traditional out parcel restaurants. There's traditional, you know, call it others. And there's a certain subset of restaurants that know what they want, and their business model is they want to be by the road, easy access, strong visibility, and that's what they need to drive their sales and to succeed. There are certain restaurants that traditionally don't need that to succeed. So what you find is generally you'll have a little higher price point on these type of restaurants that serves a certain market, And, you know, the types of restaurants that we're targeting are the types that aren't going to go interior necessarily. So to answer your second question, what guarantee do you have that, you know, other phases happen? I mean, we're incentivized, right? We just bought 2 empty boxes. They don't do any good to us sitting vacant. I can guarantee that, both from the deterioration that it will cause the mall long-term and from the money that we've already spent on those. Our incentive is the same as the village's incentive, generally speaking. What guarantee is there? There is no guarantee, except that we've put our money where our mouth is, and we're working furiously every day to figure this out. And it's not easy. It's a very difficult business right now, but we're a very strong team and a strong company, and you know, we're committed to finding the right long-term solution for this to ensure that this remains a viable commercial corridor.
I guess I just want to make sure that we're not eliminating other possibilities by putting these 3 restaurants in there. Then it kind of blocks off some of the land that could potentially be used for a different design. I'd hate to have you put these up and then decide, oh, you know, maybe if we had a little bit more space, we could have done something a little bit differently.
Are you guys going to own the buildings?
We are. So our partner,
You're going to lease them out to whoever?
we plan to lease them out. We plan to own them long-term. And one thing that we have plenty of here is space. We have plenty of land. So that's not even gone into our calculus, quite frankly. Between the Carson Perry Scott and the Sears land, we aren't concerned about a shortage of land. You know, in 100 years, we'll see.
The whole site is what, 100 acres or more? The whole ring road, everything.
Yes, I believe so.
You know what it is, Dave? Well, you want to guess? Humor me. I know it's about 100 acres.
You probably know.
No? Anyway, it's okay. Yeah.
The mall itself, the mall property, it's not property, but this building space is 1.3 million square feet.
Well, I know that. I'm just saying the acres are about 100 acres. I mean, it's about twice the size as what we just did across the street with Melody Farms. So, in essence, okay, well, so if you're going to own the restaurants, that's not a bad thing. You know, I mean, and you're going to lease them out to people. So you can pretty much do whatever you want with them then. If you're concerned, David, about, well, what if you need them?
Right.
Well,
Then they can
they
tear it
own
down
them.
and they own it. Right.
You know, so, and that's important too. But I don't have a problem with this at all, the three restaurants and moving on them quickly, because the competition is in our memo coming right after these guys, you know? And to now control 3/5, or let's say 60% of that mall, or close to it, you know, it's divided into 5 pie pieces.
That's right.
Yeah.
Roughly. The
Yeah.
mall property is a little
So
bit bigger,
So you
but yeah.
probably got 60% of it, 60% of the land, you know? And you got all the inline, obviously, you know, space. So, yeah, I mean, you know, this is going to be, what would you like to see ideally? Whatever it's the housing, the retail, the restaurants, you think it's going to be 2-3 years, 4 years?
Look, I can't give you a time frame. We all hope it's sooner than later. I mean, we want to get this done, right? Again, our incentive, I mean, we made a huge investment in this mall.
Yeah.
And, you know, everything we do is with the eye to protect our investment.
What'd you take ownership of this 5 years ago, 6 years
No,
ago?
sir. December of 2015. So call
okay.
it 3 years ago,
Yeah,
almost.
Okay. All right, well, go ahead. I'm sorry, David. You can keep going if you want.
No, I'm
Okay, trustee Cook?
Couple things. You're talking about a different style restaurant than we've got here in town, correct? I mean, more like just to throw out a couple names, a Bonefish or a steakhouse of some kind, or something that we don't have in town?
That's the
'Cause what
goal.
we don't need is another chain. I mean, that's actually something, we do not need another chain restaurant unless it's like a steakhouse type place something we don't have. Because we've got just about every chain known to man.
Well, we're looking both at nationals and at locals. So we're looking across the board. We're looking for good operators. That's who we want. We want good concepts. You know, We're not looking for fast food. I can tell you that.
Okay,
We're looking for good operators that are sit-down quality experiences.
okay.
There are some nationals that are good experiences, and we're not opposed to that, but we also want local flavor.
One of the big things is going to be for me when we get into the actual nuts and bolts of this whole project is going to be, this is not going to qualify for TIF, will it?
We already
mean-
told them that.
That, there's no
That's
chance.
not on the table.
I know,
No,
yeah.
it's not.
And
And
so,
if it's insisted upon, we got a problem.
yeah,
I
and,
mean, a big problem.
and, a lot of it's going to come down to, you know, what you're looking to finance and what you're looking for us to help out. That's going to be a huge thing. In terms of the, residential, hotel would be better. And I know you've talked about the possibility of that.
Yes, sir.
Maybe even some kind of a convention center hotel type thing would be an outstanding addition. The residential, when Focus was being built, there were numbers being thrown. It's a 260-unit development. There were numbers being thrown around of 70 to 100 or 100-plus kids out of 260 units. At the time, I was saying 1 kid per 10 units, which would have been 260 maybe, and right now they've got 130 rented, and that would have been 13 kids. I was wrong. There are only 4. So I even, 5 with a high school, 4 elementary and a high school kid. So I was even overestimating it by twice as many kids as there are, not that 60 to 100. And this kind of, I mean, we've got about 8 or 10 different in the area that we've looked at, and they just don't bring in that many kids.
It's not a good place to raise kids. It's
No.
not what you're looking for.
No. And at the same time, brings in very high dollars, much higher dollars than the Sears building. Because let's face it, malls don't pay a lot in property tax just because all it is a shell, as opposed to a residential, or the best thing for a school district is a hotel. Because it's very high dollar per square foot tax bill and no kids. So that's why they're number one. But after that would come a high-end residential that doesn't bring much in the way of kids. Because your tax scale around here, and boy, explaining real estate tax in Illinois is like, yeah, really. These would be significant, like Focus is going to be, I believe, a significant cash flow, positive cash flow for the school districts, comparing number of students that it brings in to what it pays in taxes. So senior housing would be again, at the top of my list. I totally, I mean, we really would be looking to see as much as you can do with that kind of thing. Okay?
Understood. Understood. And
And
we agree, as far as property taxes go, certainly a decline in the overall property taxes is not what anybody wants.
And one other thought to throw in as I was looking at these kind of drawings, as you were putting stuff where the Sears would have, we could say, used to have been, would you be looking at doing something to maybe make a very open type entrance to the mall to give the feeling of more of an open mall as opposed to the old traditional mall? I mean, and then once they got in, they'd realize they were fooled, but something to make it look more contemporary and more open?
Well, whatever we do, we're going to make it look nicer than a big Sears box looks. Nothing's off the table as far as we're concerned. I mean, we're looking at a number of different executions, and as I mentioned before, we have a lot of land. So what we're trying to do is fortify them all in any way and every way we can find. We're trying to giving reason for people to come. Part of that, as you note, is the experience, right? There's the experience that we don't necessarily consciously think about, but we know when we're somewhere and it feels good and it feels right. And that's the experience that we try to give people.
Well, and that's what I'd like to see you build on, what has already taken place in terms of the making it more of an entertainment destination as well as a you know, with restaurants and a movie theater and that kind of thing. It's more as much an entertainment destination as it is a shopping destination.
You're preaching to the choir, sir. Yes, sir. We're all over it. That's the focus. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, I was going to say also, who put this sheet together with the school number of kids coming out of each project?
That was a collaborative effort. I mean,
Yeah, it's fine. Obviously, from looking at this, and you could share this with everybody, because everybody, you don't all have it here, do you, in the audience?
No.
Yeah, well, we'll give it to you. But I'm just gonna, when you look at it, I mean, the townhouses, they could generate kids more so than the multifamily. Taking a look at Aspen Point, taking a look at Poets Corner. But then you look at, the actual multifamily high rises, and it's not off the page at all, and look at, almost 300 units, was the old Amley. There's like 22 elementary and 13 high school,
Out of 300, and
Yeah.
the Oaks right down the road here, which is
Right.
336 units.
Right,
The Oaks has brought in 32 elementary
yeah,
and
four
4
high,
high school, which is.
and it's
point-
open and running and it's
That's
established.
0.1 kids per unit, one
Yeah,
kid
I mean,
for
the
every
other-
10 units.
The other thing
Overall.
we could put on here is how long some of these places have been the Amley, now Milton, it's been here for decades.
If I can help you.
You know.
I initially put that together,
Yeah.
and Joe has updated.
Yeah.
This was during the course of my term, which now
Yeah.
is at 14 years. So that's what has been approved over the last 14 years. And currently, it stands at 98 kids have been added to the population of District 73.
Coming out of these developments.
Coming out of those developments that were approved during the time that I've sat in this chair, which is 14 years. It'll probably go up to 102, 105 with the completion of the leasing of the Focus properties. That's it. That's what these have developed. So with that being said, I don't have a particular bias against the type of housing that you're talking about
Right.
here, especially because you're looking at multiple components in your initial machinations on this, that one of them might be a senior, which is age 55 and above, I'm assuming, and therefore that would basically generate 0 kids, nominally speaking. So, yeah, I'm not really averse to this, because it's going to generate so much additional property tax, which, if I can speak at this point,
It's
I
not a
guess,
TIF district.
I have a couple of questions. Number one, how did you do with, you guys appealed the Sears property tax? Were you successful?
I'm not sure. Do you know offhand?
How successful were you?
We'll find it. If you
Percentage.
don't have it,
Percentage.
we'll find it. Don't worry about it.
10%?
We'll find it for you.
Well, no,
You don't
I'm
remember.
curious, 10%, 20% reduction? So a nominal reduction. Yeah, that's not going to get you anywhere near being able to create a TIF district. And again, for the school districts and the fire department and Lake County and the Forest Preserve District, they would love nothing better than to see you redevelop that Sears property so that they can start generating equal to what they were getting before and beyond. But enough said there. Questions concerning the Carson space? You don't really have a plan per se for that. Are you still holding out hope for another big box retailer?
That's certainly an option. I mean, we're looking at a number of options, and some of it is backfilling.
What's the probability? 1 in 10, 50-50?
I really have no way to handicap it. I'd say 50-50. I mean, maybe even lower, right? There are fewer users that can take that kind of box all in one shot today than there were a year or two ago.
By the way, congratulations, though, on leasing out the Babies R Us. That is
Thank
your
you.
property. That
It is.
PJ Superstore seemed to be doing well.
It
Did we
is.
ever get the trees cut down so you can see the sign from 60 in Lakeview? Please pursue that. We wanted to change some of the, so that you could see your PGA Superstore sign from the south side of 60.
Okay?
Carson's furniture space, any still up?
Nothing right now.
Anybody looking at it?
We have lots of ideas.
Okay.
As you can imagine, from a retail perspective, it's, it's not front and center. So it hasn't been, I don't want to say as much on the forefront or the front burner. I mean, it's not on the back burner. We focus on it, but we'd love to find maybe an alternative use because it's just not a
Whether
strong retail
someone-
location.
Deep undercover and in the know or whatever, but someone on Facebook said you were going to turn that into a pinstripes.
But send their contact information my way. We'll talk to them.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes, or an Apple store. We'd love to do that there
At the
too.
Apple Store, you kind of would be good.
There you go.
correct.
Was that about $1,000+ a square foot? Apple?
Oh, yeah.
In sales,
Yeah.
they do pretty good numbers.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Valleys, you guys got any
Yeah, Bally's, you guys own
plans
that
for
too.
that?
Interestingly, we're working on it. We have
No
some,
funeral homes, though.
it's not a funeral home.
No, I know.
We're going to all need one.
I mean, that's cruel and unusual punishment because you got the senior housing there. This-
Yeah, but you got McAllister's right across the way. They have.
We could just connect it, right? Just have kind of a, no.
I'm not- no,
There's
okay, go ahead.
there's nothing done by any means. It's still very early. But we're working on it. I mean, we have a user right now that's interested. We're trying to figure out if something real can happen. If so, we'll obviously come talk to you about that. But it would be we think it'd be a fantastic use if we can push it ahead. Not a traditional retail use.
With going forward, with these 3 lots, I only have one caveat, and that's we need to get a direct crossing between your property and Melody Farms. That's nuts, the way
21
that,
ring.
yeah, that alignment that's just,
You-
I don't even know how, well, because it was your property and we couldn't,
Well, it wasn't our property at the time.
yeah, but
So-
at this juncture,
So we've
that
we've
needs, to get a yes vote from this chair, you're gonna need to fix that. Okay?
yes, sir.
Okay.
We
Mr.
have our
Schultz, maybe something real quick. We had a conversation ahead of time. They've given us a letter of commitment to share whatever easements are necessary. We're into IDOT for a permit.
Excellent.
We had that conversation because it's important.
Good man.
Now, is this the Ring Road and Denny's? Yes, sir. Both of them?
Well, I don't, Denny's is,
we don't own Denny's.
It's both of them. You may recall that
That'd be
on the
fine.
east side, people didn't have to go to the cornfield. So they would turn left on Milwaukee, they'd go south on Milwaukee. This would allow a straight-through
Right.
movement.
yeah,
And we
Right.
said we're
yes, sir.
Better do them both,
Yeah.
we understand that needs to be connected, and we're willing to work with the village to come up with something that makes sense. So we've already committed to working
And
with you.
I've got one more, and it's really not directed to you, actually, it's directed to Attorney Hunt. Special service districts, what are the taxing parameters that can be applied to a special service district, i.e. this 100 acres or whatever it is, with regard to generating additional taxation revenue?
Want to create additional taxation revenue, or you want to create a special service area to help fund improvements?
Sure. Yes.
We're not issuing
Two-
bonds.
two-
That's what that's all about.
Well, SSAs, for improvements, you typically would raise money by issuing bonds
Right.
and then have an incremental tax that would be added on that would repay that debt.
And that incremental is typically property, or can it be sales?
For a traditional SSA, it would be property, but certainly there's methods of doing incremental taxes for sales taxes as well. It wouldn't typically be considered a special service area per se, but there are methods of doing that. For example, Bolingbrook has an incremental liquor tax depending on where it is. Naperville has a similar kind of situation as well.
Thank you. That's all I've got.
Okay, well, I mean, tonight is basically the 3 restaurants. And obviously, we'll be back here many more times on anything else you're gonna do, so.
Yes.
Do you want to give the speech, Keith, and let this go to technical review?
So you understand that by granting concept approval, it's not a guarantee of any ultimate approval. You still need to go through the technical review process, comply with all the villages and our consultants' requests and requirements, as well as the necessary ordinances and any other thing. Your attorney's in the back nodding his head, so he understands.
Yeah, so, okay, so this won't have, obviously, it'll have nothing to do with the housing potential or other retail or other amusement eatery joints. So, so in essence, you know, well, we don't need a vote on this, but has anybody got an issue with them going to technical review for these restaurants?
I like the plan. Again, interested with senior living, hotel, restaurants. I don't have a problem because technically too, if I'm correct, about 80% of restaurants fail. So you'll see turnover, but the concept, I'm liking it, so.
How about Dak, you got any questions? I mean, your concerns? I mean, you already voiced them, but is
Yeah,
it okay
they're-
to go to technical review on this?
Yeah, I think it's okay to go to technical review, but along with Mike's point, I just have some concerns about all these brand-new restaurants all at the same time. So, I'd
Yeah, well,
rather give them a little bit of a chance to settle in before we put the competition up.
all right, well,
Yeah, my only concern is it's got to be restaurants we don't have.
Yep.
It's got to be something that's different than what we already have. That's both a benefit to the community and a benefit to you, you know, in terms of them being successful.
Yeah, there's no more, Sullivan Steakhouse closed, so, you know, that market is pretty wide open, especially if you can include an entertainment component with that.
okay.
How big are these restaurants? I can't see from the,
They range, and obviously this will be something that changes over time depending on who the user is. But they range from about 6,500 or 6,000, 6,500 up to, 7,500, even some of them 8,000 square feet at times.
Yeah,
any idea how big, like Cheesecake Factory or
Bigger than that.
Fire?
They're bigger than
They're
that.
bigger than that? Okay. Okay.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah, they're bigger. they're
Trustee
bigger.
Brown, how do you feel? Go to technical review? Okay, I don't have a problem either. And, share this cheat sheet here with the folks from the school board.
Yeah.
We got two of them, right?
Yes, I'll
Yeah,
share them.
okay. And then,
Well, the one
and I was just,
added the total number of unit. The one originally just had the number of students. The revised copy has not just only the
you got the
number of
unit.
students, it's got the total number of units. in
That's
the
okay.
development.
We can blend them together.
The one thing that it didn't have was the Pulte homes, though, did it? Any of
Yeah, it did. Yeah, Greg's. They're just throwing Greg's in there. Oh, no.
It has the total number of units, but because the homes are custom-built and the buyer can select whether they want two-bedroom, three-bedroom, four-bedroom, five-bedroom, we don't really have an estimate on those, because it's really up to the buyers. Right now, I would say a good number of them are two-bedroom.
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, and, again, to talk about anything germane to the housing and its impacts on the schools, obviously, tonight's not the night because we're just talking restaurants. So anyway, okay. Anybody? Attorney Hunt?
Did you want to also have them note for the record? I know staff has spoken with them about continuing to work with the village in terms of longer-term visions and plans for the overall site, kind of a when and if scenario. And our understanding is that they've committed to do that.
Yeah, all right.
Absolutely. We'll continue doing that. We've done that, and we'll continue to. Yes,
All
sir.
right. Oh,
Thank you. We're working every day. There's a lot of different ways it could go, but what we know is it will be better than it is today, and it'll be better for all parties. Well, then you understand. Bring some tenants to us. We love it. We love your ideas.
All right.
Bring them to us.
So that's all we got for tonight. Any other questions for Oliver here? Okay, if not.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn? We're not going to closed session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call.
Trustee Markwart. Trustee Cook.
Aye.
Trustee Schultz.
Aye.
Trustee Oppenheim.
Aye.
Trustee Takaoka. Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you and good night. The special meeting is adjourned.